3, 2, 1. To argue to not love is to argue to not be human. For my speech, I'll do a couple of things. First, I'll provide the framing, then the burden, then our stance, and then 3 arguments coupled with some counter arguments that I would love to preempt. So, for some context, what we're arguing today is that love, as fundamental as it is to we humans as social beings, is an intrinsic part to human connection, that without it, we simply lose a complete dimension as to probably living into a monochromatic world. So love we are referring right now is the deep connection to care, to accept others despite their flaws, and to provide a deeper connection that is beyond the normal connection that we typically have. So for my speech, I'll be mainly focusing on romantic love, and my second speaker will expand that towards friends and families. So the burden of ours is to prove that the net effect of love, including its ending, is beneficial for humans to flourish. And opposition needs to prove why not loving is preferable and not just acceptable. So our stance is that love is a fundamental part to humans, and without it, we will lose irreplaceable self-improvement and lose the intrinsic value of these connections, as well as there will be an intrinsic amount of harm to avoiding emotional connections. So moving on to the arguments. The first one is that love enables irreplaceable self-improvement. The mechanism here is that love forces you to be vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable about your fears, your insecurities, your capacity to intimacy. And it's only through relationship that you learn how to, it is only through relationship and the honestly unavoidable conflicts that will happen during these relationships that you learn how to deal after the conflicts, that you learn how to do conflict controls, and you learn how to compromise towards a solution, towards a common ground that you can all stand on. The impact here is that these skills, these conflict controls, or then these soft skills that they do not teach anywhere else, is generalizable and translates to every other domain, whether that is professional skills, where you often have to negotiate with your peers or negotiate with your supervisors, and secondly to friends and families. And beyond that, those who never loved remains emotionally underdeveloped, when they lack the ability or when they lack the experience to be vulnerable, they never understood how do they expose this, how do they show their weaknesses while compromising to a much more better common ground. The last portion, which honestly is unavoidable but is beneficial in the net positive term, is that it accelerates maturity in the sense that you know what your boundary is, you know what you want, and you know that despite there are losses that happen, you learn how to resolve it in the next relationship or in the next friends that you meet, and you learn what you want exactly to build towards a stable relationship, which we believe is a net positive in general. And moving on to the second argument, where there is an intrinsic value of connection, being that humans are fundamentally social creatures. A romantic love creates the strongest bond in existence, whereas families and friends love also creates a very strong bond. And what is special about being loved is that being loved validates you in the sense that a person chose you, a person that understands you, and a person that accepts you despite your flaws. And that these shared memories, whether that is through conflicts, whether that is a shared trip, while there is shared perhaps hardships or adversities that happen during these relationships, they last. So there are these following impacts. The first is that even after these losses, these memories and these knowledges will inform you that despite the loss did happen, despite the relationship did end, that you are capable of having deeper connections, that you are being human, that you can have connections despite of your flaws. And then second is that those who never love are like people that simply live in a monochromatic world. They lack the color, or they do not see color for their entire life because they lack another dimension to their human experience. And given how there's only one time, or there's one little life that we live now, I think that is extremely wasteful. And moving on to the third argument is that there is a significant harm of emotional avoidance, whether that is through choice or through circumstance. That choosing to not love causes itself a severe amount of harm. The mechanism here is that avoiding harm requires emotional walls, I'll take it later, that not only blocks love, but also being vulnerable to anyone as a whole. So this often leads to isolation, regrets, like waking up at night thinking about what if I did pursue that relationship, what if I did choose what. And this loneliness is currently recognized as similar or on par or even worse than just simply having physical harm. So the impact here is that the pain of loss is often transient or temporary. That the emptiness of never loving is often chronic. In the sense that when you experience losing a relationship that you really love and you really adore, these things are often transient. They bring you benefit, and after you get into another relationship or after just a certain amount of time, these things sort of phase while they left you with growth. They left you with real things that you can take away from. While the emptiness of never loving becomes chronic, that you will bring to your deathbed. The second thing is that people often regret what they did rather than people often regret more what they didn't do over things that they actually did, even if the things they actually did didn't turn out exactly to plan. Because when they realize that their time here on earth is finite, when they realize that they only have one time and they realize they didn't have the experience, they will always be haunted by the what ifs, and this what ifs alone drives the justification of why we should love, despite maybe there will be endings to it. And in conclusion, the short version of this argument is that the lack of love or choosing not to love, whether by choice or circumstance, is an active deprivation of we as humans to flourish. I'll pick your view on.
How can people recover from painful relationships?
I'll mention that just right now. So the reason why people can take info from these painful losses is honestly better than just going from a lecture. Because when you're confronted directly to loss, you're haunted by it honestly in the first few weeks. And this is crucial for self-development, because when you are faced with a topic, when that topic simply doesn't go away, you're sort of forced to find a solution. You're sort of forced to find a way to move on from it, whether to develop a new hobby or to think about what you did wrong and what your boundaries are in order for next time the harm isn't that helpful. So to be honest, you do move on regardless, because the system, or at least how loss happens and the magnitude of the loss relative to the magnitude of how you love that person is simply what causes you or motivates you or even just forces you to grow from it, to learn from it. So moving on to the cognitive reactions. The risk of love and its loss damaging you is not a justification of why we love, because this transfers to everything. We don't tell people to not chase their dreams because there might be failures to chasing their dreams. We don't tell people to not go outside because there's a chance of something going wrong on their way to work or on their way to doing anything what they do. The magnitude of the value and the magnitude of growth that you can distill from a given experience is reflected on the magnitude of losses. And we say that the magnitude of losses is justified because it basically guarantees you to growth, to being a better person as a whole. So in conclusion, to not love is to not be human. We are proud to propose.
Hello, thank you for that, Prime Minister. Now calling on Leader Speaker.
Are you ready? Okay, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Panel, honestly, I would just like to tell you something. I believe that government side is actually idealizing the whole concept of love, and also I believe that they're kind of promoting something which is traditional, telling us that we have to love to find pleasure in our lives. So proud to oppose on this motion. Let me start off with some framing. Now, I would like you to consider what loss actually means, because I believe we didn't really frame it so clearly so that we have a clear idea about how it means. So basically, loss can come through many ways. Throughout this concept, we believe that loss comes through breakup or maybe traumatic experiences or regret, things like that. That means that loss is actually something which is really fundamental between both romantic life and social life. This means that this loss actually impacts your life a lot, and it always impacts you negatively. How about never loved at all? We also believe that government side framed never loved at all too narrowly. They believe that never loved at all means never having any emotions and neglecting the whole meaning of humanity, while we believe that never loved at all only means you never had a romantic relationship, you are more independent than the people who have loved before, and you care more about self-love and self-importance, things like that. Now, what is love? We believe that love can come through many ways, and specifically through deep relation, romantic partners, sharing secret, or consistent commitment. So now I'm going to be talking about our model. What are we proposing at our side of the house? There are two main things we're proposing. The first thing is that we are going to promote self-love and independence. So the whole thing about the whole thing about not loving before is basically a good way of promoting self-love and independence. Second, we want people in our side of the house. We believe that we are the only specific side of the house which can help people focus on academics and profession, which I'll be talking about later. Note that in this debate, I believe that we do not need to prove why love is bad. That is quite obvious, but we need to prove that loving but losing is something which is really bad. So let me start off with a few key pieces of framing. So firstly, why do people even want to be in a romantic relationship, or why do people even want to love anyways? There are two main reasons to this. The first reason is because they feel lonely and lost. Note that this means that they aren't really in need of a relationship. They just feel lonely and lost about their current life and their current status. So that means that they don't really need a partner, but they want a partner just because they feel lonely and they don't know what to do in life. And the second part is the minority. It's because they truly love each other. That means that they're soulmates. So what is the problem? What is the current problem in the status quo? So we believe that they didn't really acknowledge this problem, and this is the problem that we really need to solve. So it's that the new generation is currently stuck in the "it's okay, loving is better than never" loving era, or pushing the young people to always believe that after loving you get more opportunities, things like that, which I'll be proving to you why this is actually a wrong moral obligation, and why this is certainly a really idealistic ideology. So starting off with my first argument about how this actually how on our side we permit the individual we're talking about to accept singleness and accept independence. Now firstly, why can't government side create this? There is one main reason: because they constantly push about how a relationship is important. This ideology makes them not be able to really form this impact. So why is this significant, or why is this good? Firstly, it helps you focus on your current plans. So this is something which is quite important, because nowadays people start putting all their balance and all their life about their partner or about someone else. And they don't really take the time to consider what is the best for themselves. So on our side of the house, when you never loved anyone before, that means that you have established a lifestyle, and you have really established a lifestyle of freedom, things like that, and it will continue to reinforce your self-love, things like that. And next, it will also help you protect yourself from people, which I will be talking about. Now let's weigh both of their scenarios when people face breakup. So the first scenario, when people face breakup, the first scenario is that it makes people in the paralyzed breakup state. This means that fury and sadness make them keep on repeating this vicious cycle. Now why? Because when they have been living in this society where people continue to tell them that loving is so important, you need to continue loving, this means that after they break up, they will constantly feel the fear or feel the need to continue pushing this relationship, which is generally always going to lead to a toxic relationship, which is not something that we want in society. Second scenario, when they are scared and they don't even, there is a possibility that after their relationship, their breakup, they are scared and they don't open themselves and they go into loneliness. That means that this actually makes the people go back to the status quo, or worse. This just makes them either lonely or either continue to search for a relationship that they don't really need. Now what about on our side of the house? So let's weigh our worst case. Let's be charitable. So on our worst case, the only thing which is going to happen, which is bad on our side of the house, is yes, the person is going to feel lonely. Well, we believe that this isn't such an important case that we should deal with, because if the person feels lonely, this means that they can also use many other ways to fill up the fear, such as maybe they could read books, maybe they could find their passion, things like that. Now, I'll be just doing a few rebuttals for the last minute. So firstly, I really don't understand why government side keeps on saying that vulnerability or intimacy is the only way to prove that you're growing up, things like that. Because I believe that growth can actually come from many different ways, and it doesn't really require love, things like that. And next, I believe that love isn't the real value of humanity. The real value of humanity is to know who you are. It's to really connect to the freedom that God gave to us, and to really believe in yourself and not your other partner. So proud to oppose on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that video. Oh, no, Monica, on Deputy Prime Minister. You're here.
if the maximization of pursuit of happiness is the metric of this debate, we win this debate. Because we have proven to you that being in a stable, loving relationship, be it a friendship or a romantic love, is an ultimate goal and something that can bring us happiness. We say that humans are inherently social. That's why when you are being loved, you feel protected, you feel psychologically fulfilled, your need of intimacy can be fulfilled, your emotional needs can be fulfilled. Also, when you are in a loving relationship, you can protect your loved ones, and it is fulfilling because you have a sense of accomplishment. You have also find a sense of being in existence in your life because family or your friends or your loved ones are something that you are fighting to protect. Hence, stable relationships benefits us and bring us a lot of happiness. Having a companion that understands you best can always and can always support you is something that is beneficial and brings you happiness. Also, having a stable partner that can help you share your family work and help you share your familial responsibility is something that is beneficial to you and brings you happiness. That is the reason why a lot of people will derive happiness from family, friends, and relationship, and why family, relationship, and friends are sources of happiness for many people. So if that is the ultimate goal, I'm going to prove to you why to lose is to learn and prepare ourselves to find a stable, loving relationship. Because to lose in a romantic relationship context is to break up, right? Or you lose in a friendship context, it means that you may lose a friend or a family member. However, losing is the process that you know that the one you date or your friend is not the right fit. Hence, through the process of losing, you know more about yourself, you know about the special quality of yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, what you actually need psychologically and physically, what your interests are, with whom you can share your interests and gain happiness from. So for example, if I break up with my girlfriend because I realize that I'm afraid of loneliness during my birthday and my girlfriend doesn't accompany me on my birthday, I need that accompany. It is only through the process of losing do I realize that I really need someone to accompany me during my birthday. So next time when I find a next girlfriend, I will find someone who can actually accompany me during my birthday. So it is easier for you to be able to find the next loved one and leads to a stable relationship more easily. Why not having love at all is bad? Because why not having love means that for an entire life, you have no one to love, you have no one to give you psychological support. Even if you lose a debate, you have no one to turn to, you have no one for you to protect and no one to protect you. That means it is very difficult for you to gain any source of accomplishment, and you also doubt the meaning of life because you don't know why your existence matters to other people. We derive the meaning of existence of ourselves mainly from other people's, right? Because we define our identity by how other people look at us. But without someone that we love, we don't know how other people look at us, and it is way more difficult for us to define our identity and define and find our meaning of life in the materialistic world. How does it outweigh the feeling of having lost, which is the crux of this debate, right? Because what we say is that the unhappiness of having lost is very often transient. Under the status quo, we usually go out of unhappiness by finding the next loved one. So after a period of time, you can feel healed from that. As opposed to love, especially when it is a love that is a stable relationship, it is generally lasting for a longer period of time. For example, even if it is a love that lasts for a short period of time, for example, I date for 3 months, I gain 3 months of happiness. But after I break up, I don't necessarily need to weep and cry for 3 months, right? I can move on by finding a next girlfriend, which can happen in the next week. So we say that the feeling of unhappiness is transient, while the happiness of a loving relationship can be longer than the feeling of happiness. Yes.
How likely is it for you to find a stable relationship when you're in the statement of being lost?
Well, you just tell yourself that you need to find the next loved one, right? Under the status quo, we have a lot of if you are in a web of being loved, you can find people who can give you psychological support, you can find your therapists, you can find your friends to consult to. However, in your side of the house, you have no one to turn to at all. So that's why it is harder for you to actually stand up from failures. Especially when we are talking about failures is something that we cannot avoid in our life. So having the feeling of loss is also how you learn how to deal with departure, which is my next substantive. Because departure is something that is unavoidable, right? Even if you don't want to choose to love anyone, you still have your family, right? You still have your friends. And someday your family will die, your friend will die very sadly. Having lost makes you more prepared to make you more prepared psychologically to deal with the loss of the loved one, and it is something that is also beneficial to outside of the house. So at the end of the day, what have I told you? I have told you that being in a loving, stable relationship should be the ultimate goal that we should aim for, because it brings a lot of benefits and a lot of happiness to our life. Their side of the house has no clear metric how to win this debate, because it is unclear how by not in a loving relationship you can actually gain happiness. Especially when we face failures in our life, you have no one to turn to and you have no one to comfort you. It is way more difficult for you to stand up from failures. For all these reasons, we are very proud to oppose.
Thank you for that, EM. Now calling on the here.
Our side argues that the meaning of life shouldn't be decided by how other people look at you, how other people treat you, how other people should or should not respect you, but the meaning of life, the purpose of your own happiness should be decided by yourself. We're very proud to oppose this motion. First of all, we're going to have a few pieces of rebuttals, and then I'm going to move on to extensions, and lastly, a few weighing on how both sides the solution can help when standing up from failures, because obviously that's very important in life, right? So a few pieces of rebuttals. They think that, they frame this debate as our side never being loved at all means zero emotions. But from our first speaker, we have said that, this is impossible, this is way too extreme. Why would they frame like this? For example, if like I'm a normal child and I came into this world, I think it's impossible for me to not love my parents, right? I think this is way too extreme. It's impossible to be like a robot and said, I don't want to make any friends because, I don't want to love anyone, and I never loved at all. I think you can love many things, right? This debate is, I think it's mostly about romantic relationships. But you can still love your parents, you can still have friends, you can still love your passion, and you can still grow up. You can do things by yourself, which is the most important thing we think that people should have in the status quo. And now second, they talked a lot about how, self-development, and they can think about your passion when you're like hurt, you can think about your family, you can talk to them, and you can go to a therapist, go to an expert or something. But within that, they have completely misunderstood this motion. Because if you read the motion once again, you'll realize that it says loved and lost. It's not just one random breakup. It's not about maybe I think like the majority of people would probably be angry and be negative about if like your girlfriend is not there for your birthday, but they wouldn't necessarily be completely lost, right? They're probably just like, she's not here with me, so maybe I'll have to break up with her. But this doesn't define whether if you're lost or not. We think that lost is a very bad. It's this very negative situation where you question yourself. Am I really deserve to be loved? No, it's not. It's not about like random small things in your life that you argue to break up to. No, it is a very specific reason. This motion is about that very specific reason. It shouldn't be just about any scenarios that the government side has brought to us. So this leads to my first extension later. This leads to our first extension of how being loved and lost on their side likely means that it loses the point of relationship for these people. Because let me paint you a picture of how if like I am someone who is being who loved before and lost. For example, like this loved and lost, like what I said, it's not just any scenario. Maybe like my boyfriend cheated on me and I got very sad because why? It's like it's not just any kinds of breakup, it's like, am I really deserving love? Am I really that bad? Am I like really is there anything that I should improve on? Am I like a really bad person, or I don't deserve to have a partner with me? Because the thing with loss is that this person is very irrational. It is very an emotional statement. It means that they cannot think properly. So I don't understand how they can be rational enough to go to find those experts when there's in a statement where they want to heal themselves. It's not good for them to just directly come to go to the solution and wanting to fix the problem when they're still in a situation they need to heal. How can you heal? How can you solve the problem without healing yourself first? We think this is very important, right? Yes.
Well, you mentioned that your values should seek inwards of yourself, and then you mentioned that when you lose someone, it's very irrational. How do you seek inwards of yourself when yourself is irrational and helping yourself is basically impossible?
I'm sorry, I can't repeat like I don't see
When you mentioned earlier in the speech that you have to see inwards of your values and that your values is not based on other people, and that you mentioned that losing a loved one causes you to be lost, and that you yourself is irrational. How do you find yourself when you as a person is not helping and is irrational on its own?
Okay, we think that this here comparison on our side. Obviously on our side we don't have the best love life, right? We never have like any kind of partner, but on their side, they're being hurt. I think we think that it is better when you have literally probably like no kind of experience when you're being hurt, which I'll explain later. Okay, we think that how on our side then can we improve, how can we self-development? I think this, even though I said like never loved at all, it is only about like romantic relationship, which means that on our side we have other things to focus on, right? Instead of putting our time and energy to please my partner, to make my partner happy, to spend time with them, I think I could focus on myself. I could probably go hiking. I could probably go to nature and find like, I could look at the trees and think, oh, that's so beautiful. I finally found the meaning of life, which is not decided by others. No, it's decided by myself. And I actually feel happy that I don't need anybody, because I think that there's a social stigma on their side and the status quo is that you think you need a partner to make you feel happy, and you think that's what makes life meaningful. But the true thing is that you do not need a partner for you to feel happy. Instead, I think that most people in the status quo need to learn how to love themselves. That is something more important than wanting other people to love you, right? Because if you love yourself, then even though those haters says, you're so bad, you don't deserve to be loved, you don't care, right? Because you love yourself, and that's what matters. People don't need to respect you, but you should love yourself. Okay, now, let me weigh on government side, which is like family and friends, and opposition is yourself. I think this is also a rebuttal to their solution, because they think that, if you're lost, just go talk to your friends. Just go to talk to a family. Just go talk to their therapist. But they're missing one very important thing. This person is really lost right now. This person thinks that, I can just talk to another person in my life and I can feel better. But no, it is because when this person is really lost, really sad, right? So this person maybe keeps complaining. Maybe this person keeps throwing these negative emotions to their friends and family. Their friends and family will instead think that, why are you being so annoying? Why are you being so dramatic? Why? It's because these friends and family, they have never experienced something so sad, so lost like this person before. So this person, when they go out to find therapists, when they go out to find family and friends, they'll realize that not a lot of people has been experienced like this. So when they find literally no one to relate to, how are they going to feel? They'll feel like, I'm so lonely right now. On our side, we may be alone, but alone is like a physical statement where you have no one in the room, you have no one there for you, but you have yourself, and that is enough. In conclusion, we think so far we have already won this debate by proving that we think we only need ourselves to be happy, and being loved and lost means that you think that all the things in your life, like what government painted, is decided by others. When things are decided by others, you'll think that if no one loves you, then do you just lose the meaning of life? Is that really what we want? I don't think so, right? For all these reasons, proud to oppose.
Thank you for that, Yoko. Now calling on government to review.
It is because I have the courage to love, and it is because I loved and I have the courage to take in the loss that defines who I am today. Today, opposition bench never explained to us, one, why is the harm like of the trauma you gain from the loss so bad that this should be eliminated. Note that they already concede that love to family and friends exists in the world. That means on their side of the bench, they eventually, unavoidably, have to face the trauma when they grow apart with their friends, when their family members die. That means in both sides of the house, we both have to face the emotional trauma when people leave us, right? So we argue that if their side of the house are trying to plant the trauma or the sad feelings of departure on our side of the house, their side of the house also have to face this problem. But on our side of the house, because we have more experience on how to experience love, how to take in the burden when you have to experience loss, in the end, when our family member passed away, we have like a better mentality to deal with loss instead of being traumatized or having some mental disease, etc. But secondly, we think that they never give us like clear mechanism on how the people became more independent and love themselves more, right? Because on their side of the house, if people have never loved, that means that it's more likely they have never been equally loved, right? We argue that if you're being exceeded, you're not being concluded like in the narrative of love means you have never experienced love. How are you going to love yourself in general, right? It's on our side of the house because you have so many experiences. You know what you want, and you learn through the process of being loved or loving someone else that you know how to love yourself, right? So two clashes in the debate today. Firstly, on individual development. Secondly, on why does happiness in general outweighs the trauma we face in love? So on development, on our side of the house, we provide two layers of development. Firstly, on psychological development, we argue that on our side of the world, firstly, we're more likely to learn to have self-love, right? Because after like so many breakups and so many relationships, you eventually learn like what kind of partner is more suitable for you. You're in college, you date some college guy, then you guys break up because you discover that you have different passion, you have different future. You know this guy is not suitable for you. It's because of all these try and error, you eventually develop and then you met the one that is right for you, right? But secondly, the second layer of benefit is that you learn that even if you're mistreated, which is like the worst case scenario in a relationship, that means that you can learn that you don't need that toxic narrative of love. You don't need to be loved in order for yourself to be valuable. You learn that you deserve better treatment. So on our side of the house layer, people are more likely to learn self-love because you know that romantic relationship is not needed, right? But secondly, we'll argue on our side of the house, we are more able to like learn how to like practice to face departure, right? Friends, friends you drive away, your loved one dies, etc. On our side of the house, we have more experience, therefore we can gain more. But thirdly, we think that we also like gain the experience on how to take care of a person, right? That means when you fall in love with a person, you try to commit more, you try to resolve conflict, you learn like different like difficulties between gender roles. That means you understand your partner more and you mature psychologically on how to take responsibility as a member in the family, and you mature more like from the inside, right? On their side of the world, because they have never loved, that means that they're afraid to share or like to create intimacy and bond. Therefore, on their side of the house, individuals will be less likely to have support, right? Which lead on to the second layer of benefit, which is benefit of career in individual. Firstly, on our side of the world, individuals are more likely to gain success and career because firstly, you want to fight for your partner. Maybe you want to move to another country. Maybe you want to have more kids. That means you have to work extra hard for a higher salary. You have to work extra hard to compete with other people in the industry. That means in general, you'll be more likely to gain like higher achievement because you know that you have someone to support in the back. You have someone that you want to fight with. You want to have a future with this person. On their side of the house, when they have achievements, they have no one to share, right? And therefore, the glorification of gaining some achievement will be less on their side of the house. But moreover, if they face some crisis or burden in their career path, will be less people to like carry the burden or to be there to comfort, because if never loved, it means that that means that they don't have a support system, right? So on their side of the house, it's harder for them to find a meaning in their career pursuit, and therefore harder for them to have like development in general. But we argue on that third point on why does happiness outweigh the trauma in general, right? We argue that even though on our side of the house, worst case scenario is that you face certain amount of trauma, we think that firstly it's likely to be short-term, right? Because you'll keep meet new people, you'll fall in love again, you'll meet new friends, right? So we argue that if you face trauma, it's more likely that you try to meet new people, gain new experience, and then the trauma will eventually pass. Or secondly, you even though you don't meet new experiences, you'll let time heal. You'll try to develop your own career, and you'll try to like find your own hobbies and learn how to move on, right? On our side of the house, you learn how to overcome trauma. You learn what you want, and it's more likely, worst case scenario, it's hard for you to move on. You have a support system because you are being loved, because you have loved people, and you have a stable support system, right? The second layer, we argue that it is better on our side of the world that you have tried to pursue the relationship that you imagine. Oh, okay, I'll take it.
If I'm hurt, I still won't be comfortable in a new relationship since I'll be scared to hurt again.
Yes, that is what I just said. Even though you cannot move on, worst case scenario on our side of the house, even though you're afraid to move on to a next relationship, we argue that firstly, you know that this type of person is not what you want. Or secondly, we argue that even though it's hard for you to move on instantly, right now, you have people, you have support system for around you to back you up, to tell you it's okay, right? Because we have love, so we have people who love us back, so we have a stable support system. Moving on to the second layer of benefit from, we think that is on our side of the house because we have love, we live without regret, we live without the imaginary vision of what if I have the courage to love this person, what if I have opened up and shared my intimacy with this person. We actually, in our side of the house, the individuals have the courage to pursue love. We're not afraid of taking in the loss. We argue that even though on our side of the house, we take in the loss, we still have more gain, we are more brave to try out new things, and we develop more in general, and for all these reasons, proud to propose.
Thank you for that, government whip. Now calling on opposition whip here.
Would you crave something that you have never had? On opposition side, on government side of the bench, they believe that the reason that we never love is because we are afraid of that feeling. It's because we are afraid of being rejected. However, it is not the case. This motion says that it means that they have never loved, meaning that they're not rejecting the relationship. It just means that they have never felt love towards somebody and they have never felt attracted to somebody. Meaning that people do not run away from their emotions on our side of the bench, unlike what they said. Okay, so there are two main clashes in this debate. Firstly, is the pain of regret versus the pain of loss. And secondly, it is about our relationships, all that important, and are you able to support yourself on your own? So firstly, I'd like to talk about the pain of regret versus the pain of loss. When you finally love someone, for example, you might have met the love of your life, but then you caught them cheating on you. You decided that, oh, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe they just don't want me. Maybe it is my problem that people do not love me. And sometimes this emotion can overwhelm someone. I find it hard to believe that you can just simply move on after being attracted to somebody and feeling the guilt that you feel after you get dumped. I believe that it is okay, sure.
When you mentioned that maybe your true calling is in nature, and you mentioned that there will be guilt, isn't guilt the only way through other support systems that you actually find alternative through knowing that other path is not necessarily suitable for you, that you find values in other things that is not existent on your side?
Wait, can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Okay. When you mentioned that your self-value can't be found inwards or found in nature, and you mentioned that there will be guilt after you lost, isn't the guilt that after you lost and through support system that you have because you have love the only possible way to realize they are alternative after the path you just have pursued does not actually work out? And this does not happen on your side because loving is never an option, and that you never have the motivation to find your purpose that is beyond the general norm.
I think what you mean is that they are going to be able to cope with the guilt and find an alternative that can support them through that work. Which is exactly why I'm going to explain why that is bad. When you feel the guilt, when you feel overwhelmed, you are going to do what he says, right? You are going to try to find something that you can hold on to. You are going to try to find something that you can be your anchor. And this leaves you prone to a lot of scams like religion and also other toxic relationships.
because you're going to try to look for something that you can hold on to. And then there are a lot of hypocrites who just tell you, hey, I'm not going to cheat on you. I'm going to be so nice to you. And because you have just healed and maybe your heart is still very fragile, you are going to believe him because that is just how vulnerable you are. And that is going to lead to a vicious cycle because when you enter a toxic relationship, you're going to slowly realize that, oh, maybe this guy isn't that good. And then, after a while, that person is going to show his true colors and he might even dump you. And this makes you hurt even more again, leading to a vicious cycle that you cannot escape from. And we believe that never loving is better than this. And I'm going to explain why you wouldn't have the pain of regret on our side of the house. This goes back to my question at the start of the debate. Would you crave something that you have never had? For example, you might never had ice cream before. Would you still long for it? Will you still regret never having it? No, obviously not, because you have never experienced it before. So that means that you're probably not even going to like it. And I think this is the core principle that their entire argument of regret is based on, meaning that as long as I prove that you are not going to regret not loving, we win this debate, and we kill their case. Yes, so basically, you are not going to regret not loving because you have never needed the support of other people. From the very start, you have already adapted to relying on yourself, meaning that you do not need other people's support. You do not need other people. You only need yourself. And you are never going to regret that you only need yourself because you have never needed other people. And that means that, and you will never ever need them, so you will not regret not having them. And next, I'd like to move on to my next point, which is about, are relationships really all that important? Like my previous speaker has said already, by never loving, you have learned to be independent. You have learned to depend on yourself. Because being alone and being lonely are two different things. Being lonely means that you feel like nobody ever loves you, and you are feeling like you are depressed and like you're just all in there by yourself. However, being alone is a physical state. You are in there by yourself, but do you feel lonely? No, because you have yourself and that is already enough. Because you are going to learn to adapt to never loving. Whereas if you have loved and lost, then that means that you have felt vulnerable and you have depended on someone before, meaning that it is going to hurt even more than never loving at all. And what this also means is that, sure.
When you mention that you're self-reliant and that the value comes from yourself, doesn't this contradict with your own case that there are intrinsic value given by your parents or by your friends that have already existed in your system? Or are you suggesting that in this world, everyone is not reliant and relying on their self and that love is completely non-existent?
Wait, can I say that? I don't understand that. Sorry.
You mentioned earlier in TIDO that when you're born, there are parents that love you, and now you're suggesting that you can be self-reliant on yourself, and that you will not crave anything. You will not crave something that you have never heard. So I'm suggesting that love, as a phrase, is non-existent on your side, so that you won't crave it at all, and that you're self-sufficient on your own.
No, love still exists in some form. We're just saying that you are not that reliant on love and you do not need other people to love you because you already have the ability to do that yourself and you can just hold on to yourself. And this leads me on to my next argument, which means that you do not have to go face the pressure that other people are going to try to put on you. Because if the only person in your life that you think matters to you is only yourself, then that means that you do not feel the obligation to fill the needs of other people. Meaning that you're just going to be self-satisfied with yourself. And I think what speaker mentioned that you are going to try to gain higher achievements for other people. However, are you ever going to be satisfied? You're always going to think, maybe I can be better for this person. Maybe I can do better and make that person even happier. However, if it is only yourself, would you still want to pursue your higher achievements, or would you just be satisfied where you are? We believe that there is no need to pursue these higher achievements if you never love everybody else, and that is going to make you more satisfied in the end, even if you don't have as many achievements as other people. So proud to oppose.
Thank you for that opposition whip. Now we move forward with reply speeches. Let's first welcome Dr. Black.
In our lives, we believe that all of us have heard the terms, learn from your mistakes. Apparently, the person that sent this have never experienced the feeling of being loved, but being lost. Now, okay. We think that we have won this debate because of a few things. First of all, let's look at best case for the government side. Let's assume that these people actually, they actually treat this as a short-term impact and they're ready to move on, right? So they actually have the courage to pursue their love and they meet new people, like what Nicole said, right? But meeting new people is exactly what leads to the reliving of the pain. We think that we have already said this, but let me say it again. Okay, why is this thing happening? It is because when you meet new people, when you get into new relationships, when you make new friends, it will suddenly, your mind will think of one thought. What if I get hurt again? What if no one believes me again? What if I get said that I don't deserve this love again? Right? Because if you meet new people when maybe like you're going through some small arguments or things, this is a reminder of your past. It's like a trauma going through your brain and reminding you that you've been through this. It's like similar situation where you get hurt again. What does this lead to? Because this impact is very big, it's because it lost the purpose of being a relationship in the first place. In a relationship, you're supposed to be loved, but at the same time, you're supposed to feel comfortable. You're supposed to feel open. But now it's just going to lead to that when every time I open myself, people hurt me again. And when I close, that's obviously bad, right? Because it means that I'm not brave enough to be myself. So this courage to pursue love wouldn't really be that meaningful because when you are reliving this trauma, we don't think this means that you'll never be able to move on where you think you can, which is very bad. Now, second, we think that how are we supposed to self-develop ourselves, self-grow, or make ourselves grow on our side? We think that there are many ways, like nature, your hobbies, that kind of stuff. For example, we think that if I love debate very much, I think most of us here love debate very much, right? When we maybe debate, we're here in a round, right? We are doing what we love. We're doing our passion. So you're thinking of nothing but debate. It means that you can actually feel like there is a purpose in your life. There's a purpose of doing this in your life. So maybe you can look back how far you come, and then you can actually support yourself by those things that you've been through, right? Now, lastly, they talk a lot about the pain of regret, but we think that they'll have pain of regret on their side, right? We also, like what we said about passion, right? They'll think that I spent so much time on this guy that broke my heart. I am regretting to spend the time with this person because why not just I go and like talk to my family, talk to my friends? Why don't I just pursue my passion when I am wasting my time on some random guy that I trusted before? Lastly, I would like to paint the picture of how being loved and lost actually looks like, because it is so painful that we think that majority of people don't really understand, right? The feeling that one day you meet a wonderful guy and then you said, you started dating, and then when you started dating, you trust this person. You trust this person of making you feel happy, making you feel the feeling of satisfaction. But then one day, maybe he cheated on you. Maybe he cheated on you with a prettier girl, with a better girl. And then you started thinking, and this is very painful, right? Because I'm trusting a person. And then this person just said, I don't care about you. This is just a one-sided relationship. I think this feeling just keep reliving and reliving on their side of the house. While on our side, even though we have like the love from family, we have the love from passion, we have the love from friends, but we're not saying that, we're not saying that this love is unnecessary. We're just saying that we think it is wonderful for you to be yourself here. Because being alone doesn't mean that you'll feel lonely. Proud to oppose.
Thank you for that one. Time now to participate. That's what comes up in the
I think side opposition has painted a very cynical picture, right? They say that even if you talk to your friends when you are down, your friends will feel annoyed. I think that it is only the situation when you have not loved at all, that is when you have no friends and hence your friends are not willing to listen to you. But if you have loved once and if you are in the web of love, your friends are willing to listen to you, right? So one important question in this debate is how to achieve happiness. Because I think that side opposition has painted a very counterintuitive argument by saying that, well, actually, people can be alone and be happy. But the reality is that I think most people are actually afraid of loneliness because we are born in a world with parents, with siblings, right? In families, right? We are used to the company that these people have given us. It is never clear on opposition side how people learn to be independent. In opposition reply, they say that, well, you can debate, right? But if you don't love your debate partners, how can you run a debate, right? If you have not lost a debate round, how can you stand up and watch back how much you have gained, right? So all the benefits that side opposition wants to claim is actually dependent on you having loved something and lost something. But the reality is that most people do still derive happiness from stable relationships, and it is only able to be achieved. A stable relationship is only able to be achieved by having lost, having loved, and having lost. Because only by having lost do you know that what suits you the best. On opposition side, what they are saying is that, well, we can be happy if we are alone. However, even if you haven't loved anyone at all, failures in your life is unavoidable. So even if you completely don't love your debate partners, you will still lose a debate, right? So if you lose a debate and you have not loved at all, it is very difficult for you to get up because you simply have no support system in your world, and no one loves you, and no one can allow you to stand up from failures again. And we think that it is very, very bad. So let's compare the worst case scenario of our side versus the best case scenario of that side. In our worst case scenario, at least when people have loved and lost, we bring people with the experience. They know how to find the next right one so that it is easier for them to find the stable partner which can bring them happiness. And I've already told you a lot of practical benefits that a stable relationship can bring. At least when you have failed, there's a support system because you have loved someone, your loved ones can give you the support. This is the worst case scenario. As opposed to the best case scenario, well, even if we concede that some people may not be afraid of loneliness, right? You cannot avoid them taking failures. You cannot avoid them having departures of their family and their loved ones, right? It means that you cannot avoid losing your debate or losing your family one day or losing your friend one day. But because you have not loved anyone at all, that means that you have no support system who can bring you the kind of consolation when you face this kind of failures and this kind of departure. We think it is way more difficult and harder for you to stand up from failures and move on in life, so that all the benefits about you can look back and see how much you have gained cannot actually occur because it is harder for you to walk out from the trauma of your failures and your loss in your love life. For all these reasons, very proud to propose.
Thank you for that government reply. Now you know coming from the House.